Well, I think the airlines are rubbing their hands and say, whoopee.
So, Eric, even with their exploding profits because of the situation with oil, fuel prices, etc., some of the largest airlines are not really seeing a kind of increase or a boost in their stocks. Why do you think this might be the case? Are investors looking for more these days?
Well, the problem with the major US airlines, it's been boom and bust. They've all gone through Chapter 11 or reorganizations. And so I think the investor is very cautious. They could have been a bit more slow in their investment. And I think there's just a fear of we'll go into the bust phase, despite the fact that they're doing extremely well.
Indeed. Now, to pick you up on some of the investment side of things, the income is also not really translating to lower fares. As a consumer, you're not really benefiting as such at the moment. Again, how do you think the airlines are kind of explaining this? Are they investing in other places, and is it the right time to do so?
Well, I think the airlines are rubbing their hands and say, whoopee. There is a thing called a fuel surcharge, which they haven't reduced. And they're all regarding that as part of the ticket price. And unless there is competitive pressure, which there really isn't anymore, because both in the United States and in Europe, there's some pretty large groupings of airlines, there isn't really a competitive situation. And there are a lot of joint ventures across the Atlantic. I don't think we're going to see a reduction in airline fares on the long haul. On the short haul, we have seen much more competitive fare structure in Europe, but in the United States, it's still very expensive.
It certainly does seem to be. And perhaps an example of the kind of competition or lack thereof, whatever way you want to look at it, is in this side of the pond, that Avalon is set to receive $1.25 billion, that is, in funding from its new parent to kickstart an expansion that could see it buying one of its competitors moving forward. What does such developments mean for regional airports or regional airlines? Sorry.
Well, I don't think the two are related at all. The first thing is, in the leasing companies are seen as a safe haven for money because you can't get interest in a bank, but leasing companies have an asset, as long as the asset residual value holds good, and they have an income. And even if a few airlines default on their operating leases, generally they have a very good return. So clearly it's an alternative almost to putting money in a bank. We'll put money in a leasing company and get some sort of return, whereas if you put money in a bank, you don't see any return. You might even see a negative return. The type of aircraft that are used by these, or at least by these leasing companies, are very different to those that are used in regional airports. Problem with the regional business is unless you're on routes where you have no competition, or where the travel by rail or by road is 5 or 6 hours and by air it's 35 minutes, it's very hard to make money in regional businesses, regional airline businesses. And you can only make money unless you're using second-hand depreciated aircraft. It is almost impossible to make money with new aircraft unless you have some very specific routes that allow you to get very high revenues. It is different, and you can't class EasyJet or Ryanair as regional airlines because they may not fly to the main hubs, but they fly to major conurbations and they're competing with the major airlines.
Indeed. And just lastly, are there any particular trends, or how do you think the future looks for this industry?
It looks good and bad. At the moment, while oil prices stay low, it's probably quite good, but there will be surplus of used aircraft on the market, so it'll affect residual values of used aircraft. And bear in mind, leasing companies, after they've bought the aircraft and rented them out, they're used aircraft. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the sad things in this industry, especially on the mainline type of airline, is it's cyclic. I mean, it always goes boom and bust. So it's only a question when the bust arrives, where it's going to go. But the one thing that has happened is more and more people are traveling. They have opened up Asia and other continents to air travel for people who weren't able to go on air travel before. So perhaps that's an ameliorating a situation.
Yeah, perhaps. So maybe one positive thing that we can take out of that. But thank you, Eric, today for coming in and sharing your expert opinion with us. It has been a pleasure talking it through with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Okay, well, that's all from Eric and myself for the moment, but there's plenty more coming your way on Dukascopy TV. Please do keep clicking back. Goodbye.